you started in podcasting before anybody I knew did podcasting, and what I found kind of a little harrowing is that people had to come to your house.
That was a big plus for me.
Really?
It wasn't harrowing. I think that it was the kind of basis for the type of thing I was doing. That it all kind of fed into...
What the fuck were you doing?
Well, I found that when people have to come into your house, and that was a small house, and it was very specific and very, of me. And there was one bathroom, and there was no cameras. So when people came over, the vibe was, I'm in this guy's home, I'm in this guy's space. Immediately it becomes intimate, if not candid, before we even get into the garage. So the entire vibe created the intimacy possible to kind of create what I created.
And what you created was basically an industry. You're one of the first comics I know to have...
Yeah, but I never thought of it like that. What's happened with it is not... It was definitely never anything I intended. There was never a way to make money. There was never a way to...
You didn't make a lot of money?
At the beginning, there was no way to do it. There was no way to make money because what are you going to do? You couldn't charge people for the podcast because then you would close the gate to building your audience. There were no real sponsors yet. I mean, Corolla, who come from radio, was doing basically a radio show. So for the first couple of years, there were kind of terrestrial radio middlemen, trying to sell what were basically terrestrial radio ads. You didn't have a rate sheet at that time. The numbers were not relative to anything that they understood. So there really was no real way to make money for the first few years for most people. At the beginning, we set up kind of a tiered donation system before Patreon, where people could make donations, monthly, pops, for swag. I was stuffing envelopes in my house for different tiers of monthly donations. So it was never, it was never focused on industry or business. The business.
You just wanted strange people in your house to talk to? Yeah,
basically. Well, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'd come out of radio. My comedy career was not really moving, and I'd been at it a long time, and it was, it was a fairly dark time, but I knew I had chops on a radio mic, and we started doing the podcast when we got fired from that radio job because I knew a few other people were doing it. But it was really
Why'd
more
you get fired?
From Air America? I got fired twice. The first time there was some sort of restructuring, and the guy was a moron. Danny Goldberg. You know Danny Goldberg?
No.
He's a moron. And then the second time we started a streaming show, they pulled me back in before streaming was really doable. We knew that there was no way it was going to last more than a year. So it was really just they closed down shop. And the great thing about being part of a progressive network is that they fired us, but we still had 2 months on the contract, but so they didn't throw us out of the building. So we were able to kind of break into the studio because we knew the night tech and start the podcast there in a real radio studio.
How long before you started making money?
Well, we started making money on the tiered thing. We were making,
right away.
Yeah, but it wasn't, a fortune. It was enough to kind of get me by. But my producer for years he was working in upper management at Sirius, and he was producing Rosie O'Donnell's show, and then he was at Chris Hayes' show, and he had a no-compete deal, so he couldn't even say that he was my producer until well into it. I guess we started making money. The ads started getting bigger once everybody, once it became a business, because we were there when that happened. It was not really a business that was something anyone would get into, for anybody for a long time.
I remember hearing Howard shit on it whenever Adam Carolla was in his studio, and Howard Stern would shit on the whole podcast world. Yeah.
He shit on podcasts in a broad way.
In general, what are you doing?
Sure.
How's there any money in this? Where's the future in it? And I heard it over and over again.
Yeah, well, a lot of people thought that, and a lot of people didn't know what it was or where they were coming to when they came to my house. Howard recently, because I announced that we're stopping WTF. The ironic thing about Howard, who I love, is that he mentioned me a couple of weeks ago. He said, well, if Maron's burnt out, I must be dead. And he doesn't realize the irony of that.
That's very funny. Is that what are you taking there? Is that chew? Is that
Zyn? Yeah, it's nicotine. But I guess the money came in once Earwolf Network started, Earwolf started, advertisers started coming around. But I think the big jump was what was it called? Jeff Ulrich had started an ad platform for podcasters. So once the advertisers started to realize the power of podcasting, and once we were able to have efficient and reliable, kind of rate sheets based on numbers, then it started to come in.